Sandy. You'll be on in just 1 second. It's all yours.
Great. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm really, really happy that you're here and that you've taken the time today to come to this talk and to this training. It's really, really important, especially as we're so busy in our life and trying to take those few moments here and there to create inner peace. Feel like they're far and few between at certain points. So, again, give yourself a nice pat on the back for showing up, for being here, for taking the time, and I hope that you'll be able to learn a few different things that you can take home in your daily practice and just really start to become more aware of what will work for you and what doesn't work for you. So my name is Shanti Douglas. I am a mindfulness and stress management coach. This is probably the most important thing in my life, to really help people to touch upon their inner light and what it means to try to create balance in your life, to really appreciate the moments that we have. And when we're really, really busy and we're going, sometimes those moments are really fleeting and they go by us and we may not even notice them. So we'll do a lot of practice today in really trying to touch on that and looking at the foundations that we have around us that can create inner peace. This is also brought to you by your Employee Assistance Program through Anthem, your EAP, which is a free and confidential service for both you and all of your household members. We'll talk about that at the end. But this is, again, it's really, the EAP and Anthem are really looking to support and encourage a happy and balanced life. So here's some of the things that we're going to talk about today. Realizing that it really starts with us, how we think about peace, how we think about settling the busy mind, the stressful life. How can we kind of let go of anger, guilt, and those attachments that really don't support that really create more challenges and more negative stimulus for us. Letting go of that. And again, we're going to go through some practice today as well. The first thing that I would like to do is just to stop for a moment. Again, we really don't stop through the day, so just close your eyes just for a moment. Nobody's looking at you. Nothing else is happening. And just see what's there. Notice what any sensations are there for you. Notice your breath. Notice your body. Notice the busyness of the mind. And then we're just going to take 3 breaths, just trying to pay attention to those breaths and expanding our body, letting that breath help us to settle into this moment right now. We're not doing anything else besides sitting, breathing, and paying attention to our little cocoon of who and how we are. Nice. Great. So hopefully that helped to kind of let go of what you just rushed from to get here, and hopefully that will kind of block off any thought of where you're going after this. So here's some really great quotes related to peace, and they all help us to identify and realize that peace really starts within. I mean, I think so much in our society we look outside for things to kind of fix us, to help us and to support us, and that help and that support is great, but really we need to do the work ourselves, and it doesn't have to be so difficult or challenging when we can really stop and dissect it. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. There's another quote that I'd like to add to this from one of my teachers, Thich Nhat Hanh, and he says, the way out is in. Again, that's the way out is in. And I absolutely love that saying. I have a calligraphy of that he had made for me. And it means that the way out of this, this craziness, this busyness, this anxiety, the frustration, the constantness, all of those things that we feel all the time that feel like the world is just spinning us around in one direction or the other. It's really up to us to kind of stop that by going inside, by seeing what's in ourselves, by noticing our emotions and the sensations, and just noticing that we're really busy really helps to stop the external flow, stop the things that are really shaking us everywhere. So as Ellen had mentioned at the beginning, I'd really like to make this somewhat interactive. So if you have any thing that you would like to, anything that's kind of brought you here, anything that you're looking for, or just some words or something, if you either want to unmute yourself or if you want to add something into the chat box about what are some of those really big triggers, what are some of those things that, if I could bring a little bit more awareness to this or peace to this part of my life, it would really support the bigger picture for myself. So again, I'm going to encourage you to kind of put something in the chat box or even unmute and share it with everyone. Anybody want to share anything? Okay. Well, feel free to during this time together. I think we learn a lot from one another. And the other thing, when we share our story and share our pain and our suffering, we realize that whatever we're going through, we're never alone. Somebody else is always going through that same thing, and somebody always has some experience to support us with that and give us some relief. So the practice to inner peace, it really, again, it starts with us. And take a look and do some reflection. How comfortable are you to spending time with yourself? And that can be a pretty big question sometimes. But, when we're so busy, we really don't spend a lot of time with ourselves. We may spend time alone without other people, doing other things, not always being around other people. But how much time do we actually spend by ourselves, with ourselves? And how comfortable is that? And I think the more that we journey away from that, the further we get away from that inner peace. It really requests, inner peace requests that we really take a look at ourselves, or we really just spend time with ourselves. We don't have to overanalyze. We don't have to, do all of the psychotherapy thing with ourselves, but really just becoming more comfortable with who we are, getting to know who we are is really important for that. And when we do that, we're able to see what our strengths are. What are those things that really work for me? What are those things that are my best feature that I can really call out that, yeah, this is a really fantastic part of myself, and be proud of yourself. Also, how often are you excited about life? How often are things really looking good versus kind of looking a little bit challenging? Again, we can get to be really task-oriented through the day. We fill our day. So how often can that filling of the day be transferred to really being excited about what we're doing, especially if we've been doing the same thing over and over and over and over again? Can we bring in some excitement? Can we even notice what that is? So I think spending time with yourself is really important. In order to listen and to hear what's going on, we really have to be quiet. So I'm going to give you a little thing to do, a little puzzle. So write out, grab a pen or paper, and write out the word listen, L-I-S-T-E-N. And I'm going to give you, a few seconds here. See if you can flip those letters around, not adding letters, not detracting letters, to make a word that is supportive of listening, that is really a requirement of listening. See if you can switch those letters around. See if anything comes up for you. And if you have it, feel free to write it in the chat box, or you can unmute and share what that word might be. All right, does anybody have it? All right, if not, I'm going to Yes, all right, yay. Elizabeth said silent. Perfect. Right. So in order to listen, you need to be silent. You need to be quiet. And sometimes that quiet is really challenging because, again, if we're not actively moving outside in the world, our brain is actively moving around and talking to us and telling us things and, bringing up recollections and all of that. But silence is really the key, the beginning point of becoming more familiar with who and how we are. And Mary had also made another comment about mindfulness, which is absolutely perfect. Mindfulness is the highest use practice that I use. That's really a huge part of what I bring to people and help them to understand what that is. And I'm so glad in the last few years it's really come about. People are becoming more and more interested in it. And it's really important for us in becoming more truthful to ourselves. And I'd like to explain what mindfulness is so that we have a really good understanding. It's not just having an awareness of something. It's not just saying, okay, yep, I'm really aware that I'm aggravated or I'm frustrated with this traffic or I hate it or all of those kind of things. Mindfulness is having an awareness of what's going on in the present moment, and it's really kind of stepping back and noticing what's really there. So we can see ourselves playing that habit role. We don't have to engage in it. It's really that ability to step back, notice what's going on, and be able to gain a bigger perspective, aka then more control, to make more decisions about what we want to do, what our next step is. So I'm going to talk about stress just for a moment here. I think that will kind of help that. So if you look at any stressful situation in your life, anything that causes you stress, let's just say traffic. I'm sure everybody has traffic as not everybody loves traffic. I'm sure everybody doesn't like traffic. But so we have the traffic, we're stopped, our car isn't moving, or it's going very slowly, we need to get somewhere, we're gripping the wheel, we may be yelling at the person next to us, we may be trying to cut other people off or zooming in and out, all of these different things that we can do when we're in traffic. That's a reaction that we have to a situation that we can't change. If instead we step back and we take a few breaths and we notice that we're getting really agitated and we become aware that we're not able to change the traffic situation, that really helps us to become more relaxed, and it gives us control over our experience. Versus before, we really let the experience control what was happening for us. So when you look at stressful situations, the situation itself is really just being what it is. And most of the time we can't control it 100%. I believe that we can influence it by what we do with it. But, the situation is going to be what it is. So our control point for our stress is with ourselves. The same with inner peace. We can't look for the world to create inner peace and then we'll be peaceful. We create peace in the world by creating peace within ourselves first. We are that peaceful guiding light, and then the world around us tends to fall behind that. They tend to mirror what we're doing. In our brain, we have mirror neurons. So whenever we're happy, whenever we're smiling, the person across from us who's looking at us tends to smile as well, tends to bring a little bit more joy into their life because they're mirroring how we are. Flip that situation around and somebody in your life is really agitated or they're frustrated or they're angry, even if you don't even know what their situation is, you tend to attract that same stress into your life as well, or into that moment for yourself. We all know what it's like when you walk into a room and somebody's in a really bad mood, and you can feel the energy of it, and hopefully we're not picking that up. But our situation about what our environment is can really influence how our stress is. So getting back to mindfulness. Mindfulness is staying in the present moment. Mindfulness and stress, right? So stress is a creation of looking at the past, and we're projecting it to the future. So if we have a difficult situation with a coworker, and they're never on time, or it's always an incomplete report, if we receive another report from that coworker, we may automatically come to that mindset that, oh, okay, there's probably a lot of things wrong with it. It's probably late, right? So we're bringing in all that stuff from the past, and we're creating some tension around that report and or that coworker. And then we may be projecting that to the future, meaning, okay, and this all happens within milliseconds in your brain, where you're thinking that, I'm going to have to do a lot of rework, how am I going to fix this, et cetera. So a lot of our stress comes when we're either in the past, bringing the past to the future, or we're already bringing the past into this moment and projecting that all the way into the future. And neither one of those locations is really where we are. We're actually right here in this moment. And this moment right here is our time of choice. It's our power point. It's our control point. If we can stay with how we feel, with the noticing of the thoughts, with the noticing of the physical sensations in our body that get created with stress, then we have a much better ability to stop the flow of the stress that's going in and out of the moment. Okay? So mindfulness is really staying in the present moment, noticing what's here, noticing I'm getting agitated, noticing I'm getting frustrated, noticing I'm having thoughts about and some worry about what I'm going to be doing. But instead of reacting with those thoughts and emotions, we just notice them. And we really don't do anything with them. Like I say, we don't go and play with them. We don't dig the hole deeper. We don't throw more gasoline on the fire. We just kind of notice what's going on, and we stay right here with that awareness. And then when we have that awareness, we're able to make better choices about what we want to do, what is really required in that next step. Okay, so that's a big part of mindfulness. The other part of mindfulness is bringing in compassion, bringing in understanding. When we can have understanding about what our situation is, how we're feeling, how we're reacting, our thoughts, our belief systems, everything else, it really helps to calm the body. When we get stressed, we get very reactive in our body. So I'm going to ask people to put in the chat, if you can unmute yourself. What are some of the things that happen to you when you get stressed? What are some of the physiological or mental reactions that you have? There's a whole list of them. What are some of those? Yeah, you get some headaches. Yeah, and like I said, feel free to unmute and share. Headaches, backaches, turn inward. It becomes all about me. It's all my thing. We get really hyper-focused, right? When we get stressed, we get hyper-focused on whatever the issue is. We're not able to see the bigger picture, and it kind of makes it worse. Increase in pulse, sweaty, hands get grippy, blood pressure goes up, shortness of breath, clenching of teeth. Yeah, all of these things, these physiological reactions. Clenching teeth is really one. Clenching the eyes as well. We might a lot of the headaches are prefrontal cortex. Most of the time people have a lot of issues, shoulder pain. I call it the invisible backpack. Where everybody kind of throws all their stuff in your backpack and you carry it around besides the stuff that you have, and you don't really notice that you're walking around with a huge backpack, but your back is killing you, your shoulders hurt. So physiologically, all these things take place when we're stressed.
Yep, all of the above for me. This is Becky.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and even belly pain, we can get irritable bowel syndrome, worrying, all of these kind of things. there's,
The tough part is at work. I can leave work and go to the Y and work out, and it's a great stress reliever. But it's dealing with all the constant 100% being available for everybody in the school that needs me 100% all the time. That then I get short, I get headaches. I mean, people ask me a question, and I kind of bark at them. It's like, and I'm working on 10 different things. But so it's it's how to deal with the daily work stress. I know how to deal with it when I leave work. It's when I'm at work that I tend to, it's just overwhelming, and it's hard to be pleasant and thoughtful, I guess.
Right.
And to
it's that constant stream.
And it had a positive persona all the time, because there are times when I'm not, and I'll have to go back and apologize to someone and say, by the way, I really didn't mean to have that tone of voice. I really, sorry, I cut you off. I didn't let you finish your sentence. There's this, but that's just part of the nature of where I work and my position in the school, and it's hard to. Yeah,
you feel a constant barrage of all of these things coming at you.
Well, it is, and it's being on call 365 days a year, 24 hours days a week, and it's just it's taxing, and it's how to relieve, and I think it's a self-imposed stress, because I am responsible for so many systems, and the knowledge that I have to be available for that is a stressor in itself. Well, I haven't come to the point within myself that I can alleviate or change my mindset, and that's the reason for joining this session, because it's how can I deal with my workload and daily commitment to the institution and to everybody and all the systems, and still not feel like I'm just going to drop one day.
Exactly, right, yeah. Great, that was a really great sharing. Thank you very much. And there was a lot of insight in that. That I'm taking things on. I'm probably taking things on where I don't need to. So maybe there's some delegation things that you can look at, or process changes, system changes.
Yep.
How do I even this out? I know I'm very reactive even when it's happening. I know it's happening, but I can't stop myself. And then we have the guilt, and then the apology. All of these kind of things. So you are not alone whatsoever. That's some really great insights that you just mentioned. So I'm going to take 3 minutes, and I'm going to talk really quickly about the brain, because the brain is extremely important when we look at stress and when we look at calming that stress. And I'll tie this into the breathing. We've all heard, just take 3 breaths, just take a breath, just breathe, right? But why? Why do people say that? We know it works when we do it. We know it works when we breathe and we pay attention to the breath, and get into the body. And get out of the brain when we actually take that breath and notice that breath. But I want to explain to you very quickly why that works. So there's 2 really important parts of your brain to consider when you're looking at stress. The first is your amygdala. That's the small nuggets on the top of your brainstem. And these are the fight or flight or freeze response. They're the emergency response system that we have. We need this. This is why we're still alive. If we didn't have it tens of millions of years ago, we wouldn't be here. This is the part of our brain where you're getting into a car accident and you know exactly what to do. You're slamming on the brake, you're swerving the car, you're protecting the passenger next to you, right? If you had to stop and you had to think about all of those different movements, you would be mashed potatoes, right? So we need that part of our brain. It's really important. What happens, though, when that part of our brain, the amygdala, is fired, when it's very reactive, it shuts off communication to the other parts of our brain, particularly and especially the prefrontal cortex, which is right behind your forehead. It's the newest part of our brain. It's only been here for a few 100,000 years, and it's constantly growing. Okay, and this is our planner. It's our C-suite, right? So it's our CFO, our CEO, our COO. It's that part of our brain that can sit back, see things objectively, and plan and strategize and bring in recollections before. What happened before that was good that I can use, and what happened before that wasn't good that I want to avoid. All these great things that we want to do when we're looking at our life, right? And this is also when we feel our most peace and calm, when this part of our brain is is very active, okay? But again, when we get that emergency response system, it shuts off communication to the prefrontal cortex. Getting back to that car accident potential, that's a good thing, because if we had to actually think about every single step that it would take to not get into a car accident, bye-bye, we wouldn't even be here. What happens these days, though, is our emergency response system goes off every single time we get it, we get an email, we get interrupted, the phone is ringing, another voicemail, another, whatever it is, all these different things during the day that in reality are not emergencies. They're just the things that we're here to do or that we're doing. But we're so triggered and we haven't relaxed our nervous system enough to be able to realize that we don't have to do everything right now, or, it's more difficult to prioritize when we're stressed. We're not seeing the bigger picture, how things tie in. How can I rework this project? How can I delegate this? Is this really part of something I should do? Maybe I don't have to do it right now, or maybe I need to spend more time on this, okay? So I hope everybody understands that there's that difference between the two parts of our brain here. When we get stressed, our breath gets short, okay? And that's when we breathe short, it signals our emergency response system to go off. When we breathe very deep and slow and relaxed and not worried, and our shoulders are down and our jaws relaxed, our body says, oh, okay, there's no emergency here. I'm okay. I can think straight. I can, breathe deeper. I can look at the bigger picture. So that's why when we breathe slow and deep, it helps to relax the whole nervous system. And it helps to bring that blood flow and that oxygen back to our prefrontal cortex so that we can think straight, so that we can see the bigger picture. So I'd like to take a minute or two right now and just to do some breathing. So again, if you guys can just sit up, a tall spine, just so that you can breathe. You can breathe into the front of your body. I'll invite you to close your eyes. Just relax, and don't even start breathing deep yet. I just want you to pay attention to the breath. And pay attention. Notice how it comes in your body and how it goes out of your body. Notice where you feel it the most. It might be at the tip of your nose. It might be in your chest. It might be in your belly. And now I'd like you to breathe a little bit deeper. See if you can bring that breath into the fullness of your lungs. So a little bit deeper into the lungs. Your belly might expand out. You can even put your hand on your belly so when you breathe in, your belly will extend out a little bit. When you breathe out, just kind of let the whole world go. Let your shoulders relax. Let your eyes relax. Let your jaw relax. If any thoughts come in, just kind of let them go by and bring your focus to breathing. You're just sitting, you're breathing, and you're paying attention to the breath coming in and the breath moving out. And if you return to a natural breath, that's fine. Just keep that attention back on the breath. So every time you breathe, bring in the awareness that this breath is the gift of your life. You have been breathing 60, 70,000 times a day since you were born. How many of those breaths have we noticed? We want to pay attention to them. We want to realize that they're really, really a gift, and that nothing else would be possible if we didn't have this breath. And just like snowflakes, each breath is different. And then whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes back up. And if you found it relaxing or any insights, again, you can please feel free to share in the chat box or unmute. Breathing is really, really key. Primary practice I've been teaching people for a very, very long time. And again, what that does, it slows that nervous system down. It slows everything down so that you can see a little bit clearer. And when you do this, when you breathe, you may also notice that your mind is pretty busy. You can call it monkey mind, or there's like a hamster in one of those wheels that's going around and round and round. But when we focus on the breath, when we focus on that, we don't really need to engage with that busy mind. Think of, actually I'm going to say brain because there's a difference between mind and brain. But our brain is doing what it's guided us to do, it's just doing its job, right? Our brain is there to think. The synapses are flowing. Things are going all the time. So our brain is doing what it's doing. It doesn't mean that we always need to pay attention to it. But it's also good when we can quiet some time for ourselves. I really recommend to sit at least for 5 or 10 minutes, if not 20 minutes a day, and just paying attention to your body, paying attention to your breath, and noticing what your experience is. That really helps yourself to slow down and to cut the train of that constant going. When you do that as well, you're probably going to notice some thoughts. And sometimes those thoughts aren't very nice. We can be pretty critical of ourselves. Think of it, would you say to your best friend everything that you think about yourself? No, it would never hang around with you. So we want to be aware of the self-talk that we have, but we want to switch it to something that's positive, right? So switching the negative to positive. Okay, so instead of, I really messed up on that. I can't believe I did it again. We beat ourselves up for days and days for a mistake that we made, a quote-unquote mistake. Instead, we can stop that juncture of that negative thought and just say, okay, great. I'm aware that I could have done better, or I wish I would have done better, and I wish I could have changed this or that. If we can change it, go ahead and change it. If we can't, then just have that awareness that, all right, I didn't do as well as I would have liked to have done. Great. End of story. Hopefully I'll remember that for next time. And instead, maybe bring in the thought that, but you know what, in the moment, I really tried my best, and I did what I thought was right. So we wanted to switch that self-talk to being positive. That will also bring in compassion and understanding, right? So when we're quiet, we know what's going on for ourselves. That really helps to bring in understanding when we have that awareness. This is my situation. I'm having awareness of these thoughts and these emotions, and then we can bring in compassion. Compassion for ourselves, and I think also compassion for other people too, because when we can have deeper understanding of who we are, it creates deeper understanding for other people. One other thing that I would like to say about the breath and the stopping, as somebody had shared on the call, on the audio, was that the day is just going, and I'm fine when I leave. I know some tools, but how do I stop things during the day? Exactly that, stop, right? Take a breath, take a moment. Even take an awareness of one step when you transition from one thing to the other. So if you're moving from your office to another room, we notice when we stand up, okay, I'm leaving what I'm doing and I'm going somewhere else. Every time you pick up the phone or before you pick up the phone, stop whatever else you're doing, take a breath, and then pick up the phone. So there's like a little gap in between everything that we do. And in that gap, we become present. We become aware of what's going on for you right now. We become tuned into the present moment instead of moving from one direction to the other without realizing what we're doing. I know we've all had the experience where we're on an email, we pick up the phone, and somebody's saying something to us, but we're really still engaged in the email. We're not listening to what they're saying. And then 10 seconds later, we're like, I'm sorry, excuse me, who is this again? What did you need? And that can be really uncomfortable for everybody. So, if we decide to pick up the phone, then stop the email, take a breath, and then when we pick up the phone, we're completely present to whoever is on the other end and what they're looking for. And in that same regard, if it's not the appropriate time, we don't pick the phone up. Right? So we want to have some control over that. Gratitude, an attitude of gratitude is really key in creating that inner peace. I also recommend people to take at the end of every day to write down 6 gratitudes, 3 for the world around them, for things that they've noticed, for the good things, the happy things, the joyful things. Even if somebody's opened a door for you or held a door for you, that you can be grateful for that. And then the other 3 things are gratitudes about yourself, because we rarely look at that mirror and say, you know what, you did a really great job. So every day, at the end of the day, write down 3 things about yourself that you really appreciate or you're grateful for. And it could be as simple as, I was really confident in that meeting today, or I wore something that made me feel great, or I didn't cut that person off in traffic, or I didn't get so upset. Something like that. It doesn't have to be huge. But when we make this a regular part of our personal peace practice, then as you move through the day, you're going to start looking for those things, because you need to write about them at the end of the day. So you start looking for that. I'm going to throw out a book by Rick Hansen. It's called Hardwiring Happiness. Fantastic book. Highly recommend everybody to get it. He's a neuropsychologist, and he talks about how to take in the good. So instead of always looking at the negative and things that aren't working, can we instead refocus to the positive? And not only bringing that focus point into the positive, because we can see good things during the day, but really letting them sit with us for 10 seconds so we can, notice how it feels. Notice that the good cells coming in. Notice those happy hormones floating around. It's like, we've all stopped to watch a sunset or a sunrise, or these days a beautiful tree with all the colors. Just looking at it and absorbing it and recognizing that, so that, again, this becomes part of our second nature to having that personal peace practice. Going out in nature is really fantastic, especially if we're in the office or in class all the time. Going out, taking off the shoes, going barefoot, doing some earthing. The earth has a lot of electromagnetic fields, and it will really absorb some of that negativity, and it will also really fortify us with some healthy ions. So getting into nature is really key as well. Meditation is an awareness practice. When we did that breathing before, that was a breath meditation. So we're just focusing on the breath, we're focusing on ourselves, and we're just quieting our mind. And the more that you stop and quiet your mind during the day, during those waking hours, the more that you'll be able to feel more comfortable with yourself, and also be able to, again, open up that pathway to that inner heart, and also let the brain, let that prefrontal cortex get more activated. So I'll stop for a second. Does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to share? There's so much information to go through here. This is really a lifelong process. Letting go of guilt and anger, how much of that negative energy do we carry around with us? Really being stuck, all that negativity can sit in our muscles, in our organs, in our energy field. It can wear us down. We can feel completely exhausted by the end of the day, even if we didn't do much, if we're just around a lot of frustration and a lot of that negativity. So really looking at that who in your life is showing up that's a constant for that. What corrective action can you take around that? Can you, talk to them about it? Can you avoid it? Are you the negative Nelly, Are you the one that's kind of bringing the situation down? Really stepping back and taking a look at that and being proactive and positive in how we deal with that. Nobody, again, I think a lot of this comes into play when we create understanding about who we are and about how other people are. If you look at yourself, everything that's ever happened in your life and in your parents' lives and your grandparents' life, everything, every single experience you've ever had comes to being shows up in this moment right now. Every single thing that's happened. And it's the same for your coworker and for your partner as well. Everything that's happened in their life, in their family's life, etc. Everybody that's touched those people shows up right there. And we all have different stories, and we all have different things that have happened to us. So one of the ways to really be bringing more of an understanding and a compassionate heart is to understand that not everybody's situation is the same. But we do share this humanity, right? We do have a very big shared humanity. That's important to keep recognized on. And getting into the heart and getting into who we are instead of always looking at the problems or the situations they're causing. What I like to do when there's relationship issues is to look at or something that you're disagreeing with somebody on, is it they're a project or a problem? So how can you deal with the project or the problem but not the personality? Right? There's a different way to deal with the personality. That requires understanding. The project or problem really requires strategy and, assessments and all those kind of things. But when we're dealing with people, we really want to slow down, let go of the judgments, let go of the belief systems, and really, share and talk to one another and see each other as the same as you are. And Danielle added, thank you, Danielle, that starting with a gratitude journal, it's perfect. And that, again, that just reminds us to be grateful for everything that we have. So, journaling, if you don't journal, and this is a really great thing to kind of write out, to kind of letting go of the guilt, the anger, the frustration, the sadness, all of those things that kind of wear us down. Another great tool for that is to talk to a friend or talk to a coach or talk to a therapist or someone like that. The EAP is there to support you with that as well. So however we need to rework how we're thinking about things and create a deeper understanding, make sure to get that support. Worrying less. How much do we worry? We worry about so much. One of the tips and tricks I'll give you is to not watch the news. That's number one. There's nothing but negative on the news except maybe the last 30 or 45 seconds. They try to throw something good in to offset the last 27 minutes of death and destruction, I call it. So don't turn on the news. If you listen to the radio, have it be happy music or have it be, something that's interesting. But try to stay away from things that, again, are out of your control. Worry is concern about something that that isn't even present, right? It hasn't even happened yet. We're projecting into the future. We're creating stress about an event that hasn't taken place. So in that moment, that future event, which hasn't happened, which you're creating in your mind, has control over you. So again, we want control over ourselves. So we want to stop and we want to touch on, how is this situation I'm in impacting me right now? What are my real concerns? Is anybody a worrier on the call? Anybody spend a lot of time worrying about things? Yeah. Do you have something that comes up all the time that you worry about, that you can realize, okay, wow, this hasn't taken place yet. I can't do anything about it, but it's really, taking all the energy out of me. Anything that you'd like to share? I've done a lot of work with kids as well, and even children are really worried about schoolwork, about grades, about, how to, am I a good enough athlete? Or just some of these things, we're comparing ourselves to others, just things that aren't even, where they're worrying about their parents, something happened to their parents, and it can really create some issues. Yeah, stressing about money is a huge thing. Am I going to have enough to pay? Am I going to be safe? Where's the next whatever coming from? And when we spend a lot of time worrying, what we're doing there is really projecting out, and we're attracting some of that to us, right? So whatever you put your mind to, whatever you put your attention to, really becomes more of what you see. Right? So a little experiment you can do with that is look for red cars or yellow cars, or pick some odd color car, and that's all you'll start to see, right? Because that's what we're focusing on. So what we want to do is to switch that worry to a positive thought. So if we feel like we're living paycheck to paycheck and we're having a hard time managing our bills, instead of worrying about how am I going to pay for next month's rent or the food or this bill is coming up, we can switch that to a gratitude and saying, well, you know what, I'm so grateful that I have this job. I'm so grateful that I'm able to, that I was able to pay the rent this month, and that I have food on the table. And really, always bringing in that gratitude and that appreciation and that positivity. I think it's more of an energetic positivity that brings things forward to you than anything else. So stopping the worrying as much as you can, realizing that that's really projecting into something that hasn't happened yet. And what can you instead do in this moment right here to support yourself? To really look deep within yourself and say, you know what, I'm really great at that, or I've gone through so many things in my life, and I have a lot of tools in my toolbox that I can reach into here, and really taking a look at that. The other thing, again, with stress and not creating inner peace is living in the past, right? But again, when we sit and we're mindful, when we sit and we do some meditation, we pay attention to our breath, we pay attention to our body, or even when we're stopping and reflecting on a situation, again, how are we reflecting on that situation? Are we beating ourselves up like we've done for so long, or can we, again, stop that train, right? Stop that train wreck that we can do on ourselves and instead see the good that we did, see how much energy we put in, how much effort we put in, and all the good things about it that we were able to control. I think it's really important that when we do look at our past and we look at our situation, to look at how strong everything that happened to us before has made us right now, and that everything that's taken place before has made us who we are right now. And if there's something that about us that we're not particularly fond of right now, absolutely fantastic, because then we can start making choice about what we want to do about it, right? We can switch that. We have that control. We have that power. We can change our mind, change our thoughts, change our life. The first way to do that is with that awareness, and it's with healthy, positive awareness, and having that sense that we can take charge instead of, again, beating ourselves up. Really important to do that. Acceptance is a huge piece of having joy and happiness, and I will really, really clarify here that acceptance is not the same as agreement. Very, very different. So acceptance is, I understand the situation right now. I understand I'm in conflict with you, or I feel very frustrated by this situation. You're here, I'm here, but I'm very frustrated. Or I'm in traffic and I don't like it. Or whatever the situation is. You know, I'm bored, I'm lonely, I need to do something. We can accept the fact that that's what's going on right now. It keeps us in the present moment, right, which again is extremely important. It doesn't mean we need to agree with it. It doesn't mean that we need to say it's okay. And that lack of agreement gives us, again, the opportunity to make change, right? So by accepting the situation, by becoming aware of what's going on, we can make a choice about how we wish things to be and the path towards improvement. Does that make sense for people? I really want to make sure that you kind of get that.
This is Mary. Can I add something?
Yes.
Okay. I think I can hit send on this. I'm going to put it on the board here. I just wanted to add that I became aware, and I'm working with a group of freshmen on campus, about the Pennebaker writing technique. And I put the name on there if anybody wants to Google it. But James Pennebaker is a psychologist and researcher in Texas at a university. And you may or may not be aware of it, but NPR did a story on it at the first of the, and you can Google it as well. It was a great little story to get the audio on. But it has to do with editing your life story. And you are hitting on a number of topics that brought me, to that in my mind, and I wanted to share it, where the writing technique, or you mentioned journaling or writing it down and releasing the anger or the events, but there are events that, we may have had that we don't wish to have, but they're there. And
right.
And this particular technique, it has to do with, writing very openly for, a series of times, only 15 minutes at a time. But the radical release that happens from that, because you start your first writing by almost chronicling the events, and by the time you've written it for the fourth time, you've created a new ending, something that you could live with. And It's a really powerful psychological shift that you're making, but you're talking about the power of choice and the power to change. I think that's what all of what I'm hearing you say today kind of keeps coming back to that these are choices. And so sometimes there's a big gap between realizing, well, it's a statement of fact, you have a choice, but then how do I access that choice? How do I let go of this thing that has a grip on me? I just wanted to share that because I found it amazing. I did it. Introduced it to a group of students writing stories where they may have a chapter of their story that, is still affecting them today, a very unpleasant component or an experience that they've had, but we do even have power over that. So I just wanted to share that.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's great. Yeah, because we replay all those situations over and over and over in our head. And not even just the big situation, whatever happened, but how we felt in that moment, right? That's where, our lack of self-esteem or lack of confidence comes in, or, we don't want to speak up, or if we get very defensive under certain situations or whatever it is. Those are the emotional responses that we've had to bigger situations. So if we can definitely dialogue that out and express it, and then look at it and decide to change it, and decide to change the view, it's not negating what happened. It's not saying that we were wrong or any of that, because any emotion or feeling that you have is not wrong. It's really coming to, again, accepting the fact that, okay, this is my emotion right here, and not denying it. I think so much of the pain that we carry with us is when we deny our emotions and we say they're not right. Think of little kids sometimes, and you see them and the parent will say, don't say that, don't say, that's not okay, don't cry, don't do whatever. So we get really sheltered and hunkered down in our emotions. So becoming more peaceful inside is saying, no, it's okay how I feel. And when I have that awareness of how I feel and what my situation is, then I can decide what I want to do with it. So that's a fantastic technique. Thank you very much, Mary, for sharing that with everyone. One of the other things too that's called "don't know mind," right? So when we approach a situation, you approach it with curiosity and without prior belief systems there. You just come into it and saying, okay, I don't know what's going on here, so let me look. Let me be curious. Let me be open to finding out what's here, so that I can let it flow more naturally. So I'm not seeing it with, the purple sunglasses or the black sunglasses or the pink rosy sunglasses that I might normally. How can we see exactly what's there in that moment? So some of the best practices, really not taking things too seriously. That can be really challenging sometimes, but think about whenever there's a medical emergency or, one of those type of things going on in your life. You drop everything else and nothing else matters, right? We get back to, again, the real importance. And that's why when we can stop on a daily basis 5, 10, 15 times a day, even if it's only for one breath, and we pay attention to that breath and say, I am alive. What a gift this breath is. And it really helps to put everything else in perspective. We get really flurried over things that are not very significant. If you take that 5-year view, 10-year view, even sometimes the next day view, it really helps to put things in perspective. So not taking too much seriously, it's great to have alone time, but don't be lonely. There's a difference between the two. So, bring in your cohorts, get your friends, hug people, do a lot of hugging, do a lot of smiling, a lot of laughing together. Find some time that's really filled with joy with others, but also, again, really find that time that you can spend with yourself and create that joy and that happiness. Again, it's really important that we love ourselves and we care about ourselves, so it makes it so much easier to work with everything else in our life. Not being overly perfectionist. We can really be perfectionists and wanting things to be as we would want them to be. And we, again, let go. So I use this physical analogy or this physical look of, and you can do it right now, take your hands and put them out in front of you, palms facing up, and separate your fingers. And maybe take a breath into your hands. So if something were to land in your hands right now, it would kind of land and then it would pass through, right? Much different than if we were to close our fingers or create a fist or push away, right? So all those other things are changing what's there. So if we can walk around with open hands, open fingers, and just say, okay, yep, this is what's going on right now. What do I want to do about it? Okay, this is what my feeling is right now. Great. I have an awareness of what that is. I don't need to say, no, I don't want it, or yes, I want more. We can just have that awareness of this is what's going on, and then make a choice and a decision around that. So that's something good to do during the day. Just want to spend a moment here on the EAP and open it up for some questions. So your Employee Assistance Program, it's a really fantastic service. It's free, it's confidential, and it's available to you and all of your family members. The website is at the bottom. You can connect on there, and there's a whole list of resources. There's webinars, there's audios, there's PDFs, there's everything from how to create a will to stress management, healthy weight loss, tobacco cessation, elder care, child care, things like that. How do I find them? What are the questions I ask? There's also the 800 number. Very important if you can't find the information you're looking for on the website or you don't have time for that, just give them a call. You do receive free face-to-face counseling sessions every year per incident, per person. So if you need somebody to talk to or you want to be guided in a different way, or even if you're looking for a yoga class or Tai Chi class or something like that, please give the 800 number a call and make sure to use that resource. Again, it's free and it's confidential, so lots and lots of information there. So we have like 1 minute left. Sorry about that. And I just want to open it up for any questions or comments or anything that you have in your life that might support others. Okay, so I'm going to give you one more thing. There's an app you can get on your phone. It's called Headspace, HEADSPACE, and it's a free app, and it goes through 10 days of mindfulness and meditation. And it's really fantastic to listen to, and it will really, support you in creating that inner peace. So I want to thank everybody for your time today. I really hope you thought it was helpful. I could talk for hours on this subject, but I really, really appreciate that everyone has taken the time for themselves to be here.
Thank you. It was fantastic.
Have a great day.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Look, there's something in the corner. Thank you.